Was it a switch? I don't know what he
It
had.
was like it seemed like it was a multi-tool, almost like a Swiss
Like
Army
with
for
the
lack of.
like with the little scissors and everything and
Mhm,
whatever. So it
mhm,
was small.
mhm,
Well, I
mhm.
would have argued the size of it alone, you wouldn't even think it's a deadly weapon.
Hey, Jasmine, it's a deadly weapon because it killed someone. That is the definition of a deadly weapon. Anything can be a deadly weapon. Are we seriously doing this? And you are supposed to be a lawyer, by the way. You're a lawyer? Unbelievable. So I want to follow up even more with some of the supposed protesters, if you want to even call them that, outside of the courthouse right now in support of Karmelo Anthony, and you can see their current behavior on screen. And what's happening is simply they are reinforcing the argument we made in the last video, which is that it's actually impossible to have a rational discussion with these people. It's not even a political debate. To approach them in good faith and try to argue the facts of the case is really missing the point, which is that they don't care about the facts of the case. This is not about them believing, oh, we reviewed all the evidence and it seems to us that Carmelo Anthony acted in rational self-defense. No, it is entirely racial to them. And let's clearly define what that means. I don't mean it in the sense that there's BLM undertones. I mean entirely. It is tribal clan warfare to them. And, regardless of what went down or how it did, literally they are of the mindset that because this is my clan and the white people are the bad enemy clan, it's morally justified to kill white people no matter what. And we're seeing that being expressed, actually. It's just pure bloodlust. Again, it's not about them looking honestly and saying, oh, well, we dispute the case, because you're seeing them go out and publicly say, no, we believe it's morally justified in one way or another to just straight up kill white people. And as I stated, this really fundamentally is not a mentality or a mindset that's compatible with civilization, especially what we would consider to be Western civilization, right? This very tribalistic clan warfare mentality goes totally against any Western concepts of, I don't know, individual justice or rule of law, equality under the law. But needless to say, I think you are watching people who are fundamentally incompatible with Western civilization. And, they're going to call you all sorts of names for saying that, but I'm just going to be straight up. They tell us that all they wanted was equality, right? Oh, content of the character. And then we do that. We literally practice Western justice. And they basically just straight up tell us, no, we want, again, pre-civilizational tribal clan warfare. That is the mentality that rules these people. And let's break that down thoroughly and expose that and respond to their supposed arguments in today's video. Previously, we already went over the actual facts of the case and we explained why it's pretty clear cut. No, even under Texas stand your ground self-defense law, being shoved at a track meet is not a reason to take out a knife and stab someone. And then you go through the evidence. It's pretty clear Carmelo Anthony was not some poor, helpless guy acting in self-defense. No, he essentially premeditated the entire thing. The whole time he's reaching in his bag, making threats. And then, after being pushed, he grabs out the knife. And then just basically because after the fact, I guess he claims to have regretted what he did. The argument of these race communists is that, no, well, clearly he should be let out of jail then, or he shouldn't be convicted of murder, even though that's literally what he did. It's ridiculous. It's insane. But let's highlight this to show you just how incompatible this mentality actually is with Western civilization, and also let that be an indictment, frankly, against the political parties and political movements of mainstream, widespread, multiracial acceptance in America that have platformed and, frankly, just gone along with and, actually literally bended the knee for these very types of individuals. So let's get into it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, to highlight everything we've been saying about supposed Carmelo Anthony supporters and why, these people are not compatible with Western justice, take a listen to, for example, the argument of this protester, which basically states that because Carmelo Anthony broke down in tears after hearing the guilty verdict, clearly this is evidence that he should have been found not guilty. because someone got sentenced to a very long time in prison and they broke down crying. So therefore, because they cried, clearly that demonstrates they're remorseful and therefore they shouldn't go to jail. That's actually the argument these people are making. Take a listen.
When they came back with the verdict, he broke down and he cried. Somber. That family nurse not good. That boy's not good. You been in there. I done talked to you before. You been in there. That boy smiled. That boy broke down and cried. They done fucked up the rest of this boy's life.
I mean, just what an argument, right? He broke down and cried, therefore he's not guilty. Because he was crying, he is absolved of all responsibilities for his actions. Now, I would point out that I'm pretty sure, didn't Kyle Rittenhouse also cry in the courtroom? Oh, no. See, here's the actual standard. If a black person starts crying, the actual rules and laws of societies, even the ones as severe as like don't murder people, therefore they should not apply. And that's actually what this person believes. I mean, we're not straw manning the position. We're not taking it out of context. That is actually the case they made. Oh, well, he broke down crying. So look, he's this poor innocent guy. You know, he didn't do nothing, as they famously chant as a political slogan. So I guess we found the get around to everything in life, right? You can break all the laws you want. You can steal stuff. You can commit tax fraud. You can even off people. And apparently, if you cry in the courtroom, you know, therefore you didn't do any of it, right? I mean, it's just how ridiculous these people are. But again, I'm just highlighting like this is the intellect. This is the rationale. And this is just the level that Karmelo Anthony supporters, if you want to call them that, are actually on. And it doesn't stop. I mean, here's another person who really says it transparently. They make the exact argument we've been saying they were making, which is, and I quote, anytime a white man or a white child can go and put their hands aggressively on anybody and something like this occur, it's self-defense. So just straight up, right? I mean, when black people fight other black people, and let's repeat, Austin Metcalf, all he did was shove Karmelo Anthony as part of a high school track team scuffle, when Karmelo Anthony was the one causing the problems and being in the other team's tent and talking a bunch of crap, by the way, okay? So, but, you know, because a white person does that, if a white person lays their hands on anyone, if, you know, for example, let's just say a white person is asking you to leave a certain establishment and you refuse to do so and they push you, it is morally justified to apparently murder that white person, and therefore it makes it self-defense. She actually said this. Take a listen.
Trying to protect black people. Anytime a white man or a white child can go and put their hands aggressively on anybody and something like this occur, it's self-defense. It's self-defense. You put your hand on me and see how I respond.
I mean, what did she literally just say? It's not about the law, it's about race. So therefore, it's okay when it happens to a white person. In fact, it's morally justified to do that to white people simply because they're white, okay? Just a public acknowledgement. They don't believe in equality under law. It is about race. And yes, they basically do just have like a bloodlust against white people. But I think maybe the craziest part of it is not what she said or what she believes. It's how willing she was to say that publicly. You know, imagine it, like this idea apparently is so mainstream and normal to them. She's speaking to the media. She's speaking to the press. This is not some secret conversation or some dark thought she has in her head. No, she's like just publicly saying, yeah, it's okay in our eyes to kill white people and the law should not equally apply to them. And yeah, if we do it to them, forget if it's justified, forget what the law actually states, you know, it's just self-defense, quote unquote, because it was done towards a white person. That's like straight up what they're saying, right? And it's not a fringe or crazy belief because she's just, you know, she's acting like it's a completely normal thing to say. Everyone in the crowd's like, yeah, you know, totally 100%. And they think it's perfectly normal to say that in front of the world, which I think really does demonstrate to you, as I said, just how mainstream and prevailing that attitude actually is in their community, okay? And I'm not saying everyone believes it, all right? I'm not painting with a broad brush, but we also shouldn't kid ourselves and pretend as if it's not at least somewhat popularized, okay? And, you know, you correlate that to political movements, you correlate that to the race communists and the, you know, white and non-black leftists leading the Democrat Party and all of that, and you think about their complicity in this type of stuff, I mean, definitely there's a strong case to be made there. But yeah, just a public admission. It's not it's about race, not about the law. That's what they're saying, right? And then again, we're supposed to treat the Karmelo Anthony dialogue as even being a political conversation. It's not a political conversation. It's not even really a 21st century contemporary race conversation. As I said, it's like an ancient tribal clan conversation, which is to say there is no conversation. You're part of this clan, they're part of that clan. We're going to kill each other because we're different. That's what these people believe, actually, straight up, right? Here's another example, though, okay? So you have this person, and you know, the totally crazy alternate reality these people live in. This person blames Austin Metcalf's parents, okay? It's their fault for Karmelo Anthony murdering the son. Well, let's hear the argument there. Is that you should have taught your sons to go get a mother effing adult like we know how to do. So that's the a coach should have come in and diffused the situation. I mean, I guess, I don't know. But notice how Karmelo Anthony didn't also get an adult. Yeah. You know, you could have just left the other team's tent instead of stabbing the other team, right?
You got 35.
35 years. If he was white, we wouldn't even be here today. It would have never came to court. It would have never been no handcuffs. We wouldn't be here today. But because somebody didn't know how to go get an adult like we all are taught, somebody's life was on the ground and somebody's in jail for something that should have been self-defense.
That shit crazy. I went to school.
Self-defense. They said we're supposed to know how to act around white people. What the fuck is that? What for? What is that? What is self-defense? Is self-defense not somebody touching you that you don't want touching you and you defending yourself? What is self-defense? Murder. Hold on. The same guy that saved the life. The same guy that saved the life. You should have taught your sons to go get a motherfucking adult like we know how to do. But that was in his motherfucking face. You don't get to put murder on somebody's child because that could have been your motherfucking son.
Oh yeah, because I'm totally so sure that you're educating your kids to go get a trusted adult, right? Totally. You know, these people are all teaching their children when you have a conflict with another classmate or pupil or peer of yours, you should, instead of resorting to physical altercation, just go tell a teacher. Yeah. Yeah, totally. That's what you're teaching your kids. So, I mean, that's just totally ridiculous. And again, okay, why didn't Karmelo Anthony go get a trusted adult then? Why did he have to cause this whole situation? And by the way, okay, let's go deeper. Is self-defense not when you get to stab someone for putting their hands on you? No, that's literally not how self-defense works, okay? In order to use deadly force, there needs to be, in the state of Texas and just generally speaking, it doesn't necessarily have to be equal per se, but there has to be some level of a reasonable fear for your life, right? A reason to believe if I do not act in self-defense right now, then severe bodily harm or death may come upon me. So no, if someone just grabs your arm like this, that doesn't justify stabbing them in the chest or in the face. I guess that's a shock. Maybe that is the reason why we have such high crime rates in these types of neighborhoods, because apparently there's just this fundamental legal misunderstanding. I'm sure that's what it's about. I'm sure that's why on the south side of Chicago, they're always shooting each other. You know, it's just because they misunderstand self-defense law. You know, someone ought to just clarify that. Can we send in, Barron's legal review to explain that? It's totally ridiculous. But, again, just pure delusion, okay? And yeah, we're supposed to sit down and pretend as if this person is even having a fundamentally political discussion. By the way, the idea, if he was white, we wouldn't even be here today. He wouldn't have come to court. Really, you mean to tell me that if a white kid stabbed a black kid at a high school after the black kid simply shoved him, that would not go to court? That would not, frankly, be a much bigger national story. And, obviously, probably he would have gotten even more than 35 years in prison. Give me a freaking break. It's just, but, as I said, just totally alternate reality stuff. It's just pure delusion. Okay. But it goes on.
Use the restroom. And they keep claiming it's not about race. Lies. Do not piss on me and tell me it's water. America was bred.
So now you're done.
With racism.
I walked in peacefully.
It was bred
peacefully.
off of enslavement.
Said hello.
Since the
How are
establishment.
you? Are you okay? Are you fed? But see, I came back the blue.
Yeah, so clearly very stable, level-headed, even temperamented people who should be giving us advice. We should be listening to, we should be putting in high positions of power in society because, the people like you saw, those two right there, don't you know, they built everything in this country and, yeah, totally. But I will acknowledge, sure, part of it is about race. Part of this conversation is about race. Not the legal case, but yes, the broader societal narrative. And here is the question. Here's the racial question. Is it okay for black people to murder white people and get away with it simply because they're black? Because that is clearly what a huge subset of the community seems to believe. They actually, do view it that way. And yes, that's what it's about. So if you want to say that's a racial discussion because you're making it racial, then sure, I'm perfectly happy to entertain that. I'm perfectly happy to acknowledge that tribal clan mentality rules over the people you are seeing in all of these videos. And, there you have it. So if you're a believer in, again, Western individual justice, then clearly, don't you know, that's actually a racist, antiquated concept. And what we really should be doing is reverting to clan warfare that took place on the plains of Somalia in 2000 BC. And that's actually the way we should approach, Western justice. That's actually what they're saying. So, a lot of stupid takes. Here's one of my favorite ones, though. So this guy, Damo Julio, says, stop sending your kids to these white schools. As if, by the way, you send a black kid to a white school, the white kids are just going to be jumping him all the time, beating him up, being super racist towards him, Again, these are people who live in a fundamentally altered reality. But even then, still, okay, so first of all, what is that segregation you're calling for? Is this where we are now, right? These people are so upset over this case, they're saying we need to segregate society. It's like, okay, well, that's what you said. I don't know, right? But at the same time, look, I mean, if your kids are like Karmelo Anthony, if your kids are kids who think it's okay to bring knives to school and just stab white people after provoking the situation, trying to create a reason to stab white people, and then even then, like not even stabbing those white people in legal self-defense, which means murdering white people, then yeah, I mean. I'm part white, but I don't present as white. I'm what they call a POC. I don't want my kids going to school with a bunch of Karmelo Anthonys either. So, if your kids are like Karmelo Anthony and you're deciding you're going to send your kids to a school with a bunch of other kids like Karmelo Anthony, and like, I don't have to be a part of that, peaceful people who aren't murderers that are stabbing people, don't have to be a part of that, then I'm perfectly willing to, accept that. But I mean, not kind of an argument lacking self-awareness, you would think, but I don't know. I guess if we're going to descend into the tribal clan mentality, then that's what it is. It almost makes you question to a degree, right? When you look back on the civil rights movement, was that ever really, for a lot of them, about equality? Or do you see the disparate impact and the affirmative action and everything that happens next? No, it was that basically they wanted to create a situation where constantly society would have to be allowing them to grift and receive preferential treatment and free money and basically reparations, by the way. I know they talk about reparations. The Great Society, the entire civil rights regime is reparations, okay? And is maybe that was the motive actually, the entire time, and the whole equality, content of character speech was in many ways, I think, not sincere for most of these people. I mean, not all of them, but, most of them, right? I don't know. I think you're just kind of watching that happen, frankly, in real time. And this is actually very telling. It's like, oh, they don't want integration. They're literally calling for segregation, but basically they just want a society where people like Karmelo Anthony are exalted and they're put in charge and they're venerated. That's what it's actually about. It's not about living in an equal society with justice and fairness and laws, because it was never about that. But there you have it. This is our country. And to some level, maybe it should be a wake up call that no matter how much we can and maybe perhaps should, I don't know, maybe it's virtuous to push the idea of equality, we're all Americans, let's culturally and socially integrate with one another because like we're on the same team at the end of the day. And I'm not even like inherently against that, but let's also sort of have a fundamental recognition that a lot of groups, and arguably like to some level this exists among every group, and again, it doesn't mean everybody's a part of it, but there is going to inherently be some sense of like tribalism at the end of the day. And I'd argue that's what the race communists exploit, is that basically every other racial group in this country, to varying degrees, it's not the same across every group, but to varying degrees, has some level of that tribalism, right? Has some level of that identity politics that they kind of view themselves as part of one another, right? They're going to protect their own at the end of the day. And it's literally only white Americans who don't act that way. And then as a result, like this is the country you get where, you know, you have black nationalists, for example, calling for a race war, saying it's morally okay to murder white people. And then white people are like marching alongside them saying, yes, I totally agree with you. You know, maybe it needs to be the moment where, you know, I'm not calling for anything crazy. I'm just saying white people need to have almost more of an understanding as well of like their own identity, you know, in the sense that, look, a lot of people are out to get them. Okay. And it's not me, obviously, but you know, it's like, yeah, there is this mentality of there are other tribes out to get them. And on some level, you know, sometimes you have to just have the mentality of self-preservation and just like understand that, right? Instead of, you know, encouraging and celebrating your own demise, which fundamentally, you know, looking at the alternative is obviously not going to be a good thing for this country or the world. Okay. You know, they claim white people are in charge of America, which I don't even really believe is true. But if that is true, okay. So you mean to tell me that the alternative and what we should have is the Karmelo Anthony supporters running this country? Yeah, God help us all. That's not something that should happen, right? So, you know, I don't know, just something to think about. But I've said my piece on it. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you were new. And until next time, God bless and peace.